Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where the orchard of wisdom shows are at your fingertips. It ignites your soul, your heart, your spirit, your mind, and your body with illumination from people who have made the journey before you. They're here now to help you on your journey, on your path of self-discovery. We are funded by you, the audience, and the people we interview. If you wish to support us, please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com and press on our Fund Action button. Anything is appreciated. We'd like you to sit back and enjoy the shows. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition as Your Health is Your Choice right here at selfdiscoverymedia.com. I am Sarah Troy, and my guest coming back for the third time to share his wonderful medical wisdom is Dr. John Poothullill, which I always pronounce wrong. I'm going to let him pronounce it better. But we have had wonderful conversations on cancer and diabetes and obesity. And today we're actually going to be talking about childhood cancers. What causes them? Why? What can we do about it? It used to be something we never ever heard about. And now we just seem to be that it's more on the climb. And he says, if you are a parent of a child with cancer, the overwhelming magnitude of questions, feelings associated with anxiety is hard to contain. What caused the cancer? What can we do as parents to help your child live through it? What is the future of your child? And in this insightful and thoughtful book, which we'll be talking about, again, he has got several books here, but this one is Surviving Cancer, a new perspective on why cancer happens and your key strategies for a healthy life. He talks about all various types of cancer, but also the scientific ways around we can actually help fight off cancer, prevent cancer, and face cancer. He's not just a doctor that's just going to, he is retired now, but he wasn't a doctor just like, let's cut it out or let's give you a pill. It's about what else can we do for you, and where does the diet come into it? How can you control that cancer with medical treatments as well as along with diet? Low grains and grain flour products, which can cause the cancer to grow, and giving your child an immune system for a better chance to contain it. Prevention is so much better than cure. And if we know what causes it, we can do whatever we can to prevent it. But if it does come, we need to know what we can do to heal it. And nobody ever wants to see their child with cancer. We don't want to see a child with any illness whatsoever. But cancer is certainly something that makes us think twice and kind of immediately, I think, goes to the thing of what did we do wrong? Hey, Dr. John?
Rana, I thank you for having me, and I thank our listeners and viewers for being part of the show.
Cancer, nobody wants to see a child with it at all. And I think, immediately I think people go to, how did they get this? What did I do wrong? Is it hereditary in the family and we didn't know about it? There's so many things that go through people's minds, isn't there?
The two most significant feelings are one, fear. What's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen? The second is helplessness.
Mm-hmm.
As you mentioned, why did it happen? Did I do something or did I not do something?
Mm-hmm.
But the question we need to ask is, what can we do about it? Most of the time, the parents are helpless because they don't know what cancer is. So they are totally dependent on the oncologist for everything. Can I feed this child this food? Can I do this? What can I do? What can I not do? So if we have an answer that puts our mind at ease, you are concentrating on what to do rather than expect the oncologist to ask every question.
Yeah, and I think that the power of what to do. Um, you're going to go through all sorts of mixed emotions, no matter what your child has. I mean, they break a leg, or if they have tonsillectomies, or, there's always anxiety as a parent when your child goes through something. My little grandson, who I'm visiting right now, had an awful stomach bug last week, which now poor dad has, because, little kids are petri dishes and they just hand everything off. But we always worry because you don't know I think the big thing is the powerlessness. You don't know what to do. How can I really help? You want to alleviate the pain. You want to stop whatever it is from getting worse. But we hear bombardment of treatments, and then we hear bombardment of people saying, well, that doesn't work. Confusion is so high, isn't it?
Yes. So the first thing is my book is all about the book called When Your Child Has Cancer. The book is all about knowledge, empowering the parents. So they are not bystanders waiting for the oncologist or the cancer care team to tell them. But don't get me wrong, we need the cancer care team
Mm-hmm.
to get rid of cancer, but there is something more to it than just getting rid of.
Yeah.
Because there could be when when you say you are a survivor of cancer, what does that mean? That means the available tests, using the available tests, the doctor cannot detect a cancer cell. But the doctor will not promise there are no cancer cells in the body.
Right.
There is always some cells that the medication, whatever the treatment is, did not get to because it was hiding. And how to prevent it from coming back.
Mm.
That is the major thrust of this book.
Right. You know, last week, and I invite people to go back and listen to all of the shows. This is our third one. You're going to learn, you know, how what COVID is and how it gained its momentum. And we've talked about diabetes and obesity, and we also talked about what is cancer. And a lot of people, you know, just don't understand what it is. But you went in detail, beautiful detail last show, where you went on describing that in a way that it's so much easier to understand. Um, but it's still that, you know, the overactiveness of something coming in to fix one thing and doesn't know when to stop and doesn't send the message back to home base to say, okay, you can stop producing cells now. So the overactiveness of those cells can cause that cancer. Why are we seeing so much more cancer in children today than ever before?
Let me, if you let me recap what we
Yes, I'd like that. So people know what we're talking about, what cancer really is.
have. Cancer is uncontrolled multiplication of a cell. What does that mean? That means suddenly you live in a house and you want to duplicate the house. Every cell is a self-contained unit, just like a house. And in the house, you have so many things you need to have to survive as a home. So, how can the cancer cell divide itself by itself? So, where did it get the plan
Mm-hmm.
to divide? And secondly, where does it get the power to construct? You need fuel. Third, we need workers. Who are the people who construct the new cell, just like a home? And fourth, we need material. Where do we get the material from? So these are the things. Let's start with the plan. How did the cell know
Yeah.
to divide? And who gave the plan for the cell to divide? Do you have any clue?
No, but we need to fire that architect.
Right. The thing is, the cancer cell, a cell that multiplies, the mother cell is called a stem cell.
Mhm.
The stem cell has the blueprint of how to do this. Where did the stem cell get the blueprint from? To understand that, we need to know how a cell divides. Where is the signal coming from? The best way to understand is what is happening normal. And then we can decide or find out what went wrong for uncontrolled multiplication, that is cancer. So, may I start there?
Please.
If you think about it, every human being is a product of multiplication of a single cell. That single cell was formed when the ovum was fertilized by the sperm, and that fertilization does not take place in the womb. It takes place in the fallopian tube through which the ovum is traveling. The sperm actually get in there and then fertilizes the ovum. Then you have a single cell called zygote. It takes 6 days of journey
Mm.
through the fallopian tube to get implanted in the uterus. By that time, the number of cells in that zygote is 200.
Wow.
Now, think about it. That cell is not connected to the mother. It is traveling. It is rolling down the fallopian tube. How did it get the plant to
Mm.
divide? That, which means it was transmitted to them, to the ovum, through the ancient cell, the very first cell that divided on earth, transmitted that information to the daughter cells, and each cell carried that information, and that is the only way that cell can divide.
Mm.
So it is a self-induced division. But then what happens is once it reaches the uh, uterus and gets implanted, the only cell that can divide will be the stem cell. All the other cells become part of the organ or system.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, the number 200 is important because we have 200 systems and organs altogether in the body. So each one of those stem cells in the embryo become a mother cell or a stem cell for an organ or a system.
Ah.
When
Mm-hmm.
that happens, what they have to sacrifice is they cannot divide on their own. They have to divide only where there is a need.
Mm.
Okay, so how do they know that? Suppose you get a cut in the skin, the skin cells get separated, and the separation, that separated cell which is exposed to the air or say immediately send a message to the nucleus of the stem cell. And in the nucleus, every action of the cell is decided by a gene. There are two genes that we are interested in. One gene issues the work order for the cell to activate the multiplication or the division. And there's a second gene that tells the issues a stop work order when the original cell that sent the message says, oh, my neighbor is back, the
Mm-hmm.
wound is healed, we don't need any more.
Right.
Now, the growth inhibiting gene, I call it, one is the growth activating gene, the
Mm-hmm.
other is the growth inhibiting gene. We have two copies of each gene, one from the father, one from the mother. Okay? If one of the two genes that should stop the multiplication, if that is mutated, the other gene will take over. This is what happens in women who have inherited, a woman who has inherited breast gene cancer, or
Right.
breast cancer gene.
Mm-hmm.
That when the breast develops, the girl does not develop cancer.
Right.
Why? Because the father gene will keep track of it, it controls it. But if the father's gene also get mutated,
Mm.
then once the cell divides, there's nobody to issue a stop work order.
Right.
And the same thing happens in cancer. Anytime a stem cell gets divided, it can go three different ways. One, both the cells, the daughter cells, can become functional cells, just like a worker bee and a queen bee.
Mm-hmm.
The stem cell is like a queen bee, and she produces babies, and if they are workers, they are like that. The second one is one can be a queen bee, and the other cell can be a worker,
Mm-hmm.
or both cells can be queen bees.
Mm-hmm.
The same way, both cells can be stem cells, or one stem cell, one worker cell, or both worker cells. So if there is no control message, stop message, if the gene is mutated, both copies of the growth inhibiting gene, you have a problem.
But it can lay in your system dormant until something happens, an
yeah,
illness or stress or some sort of shock, and then that can activate it.
yeah. Radiation,
Mhm,
chemicals, sometimes infections,
mhm.
all these can activate it. Do you know every male has breast producing genes capable of stimulating breast production of a breast? And in sometimes this happens in what's called the gynecomastia.
Mhm,
That is development of breast in a male. Those
mhm.
stem cells that are capable of producing a full breast are dormant in the male.
Right.
So we all have stem cells.
Yeah.
And if you don't have stem cells keeping quiet, we won't be able to heal a wound.
Right.
We won't be able to finish an organ if it gets injured.
So when we see certain people born with double organs or, developing other tendencies to things, is that because in the blueprint, the blueprint was wrong for that particular stem cell?
No, it is because the stem cell itself divided and then both survived as stem cells. Just the best example is twins.
Yes.
Why do they form? Because each stem cell is, before they are get implanted, they are fully capable of producing a human being,
Right.
a full human being. So if that gets separated and then get implanted in two different parts of the uterus, we have a twin.
But how do you explain that sometimes you get identical twins in
This is,
every way, and other times they're nothing alike?
well, again, the stem cell, the earlier the division, the more like they are.
Mm,
They have equal copies of all the genes.
right. They're carbon copying each other.
Right. Remember, imagine the first cell that divided.
Right.
They get separated. Then we have two identical cells with similar genes capable of doing the same thing.
So quite fascinating, isn't it? I mean, whoever designed the blueprint of the human anatomy, it's really quite intriguing because everything is extremely functional,
Yes, yes.
and it can be very optimal, providing,
It complements each other.
right. But it is a lot to do with what we put in our bodies, how we manage stress, and what environment we're living in, whether it's toxic or whether it's healthy for us, because the body itself really doesn't know how to heal itself, but very often we don't help it through our own way of living.
Right? That is where the other limitations come in. We need energy, we need workers, we need materials. In order for any cell to divide, you need workers. They are called enzymes.
Mm-hmm.
And those workers are in the cell already doing routine work. Suddenly they get a message, no, we have to divide. Then they have to have the energy, not only for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
but for construction.
Yes.
In the past, to construct a home, there was one person, the person who did all the cutting and sewing, mixing and putting together. Then we got energy from, say, electricity or some other source. So the energy source became separate and the person became more efficient. And then the material were brought to the household or the location, and he could construct it faster. Otherwise, initially he had to go and get it.
Right.
So that is what happens in the body. Every cell, every stem cell use the same power source, same material. The only thing is, in the case of cancer, the production of new cells don't stop.
Right. So again, it can lie dormant, and then just manifest somehow. But when we look at a child, and I had a friend whose son died at the age of 1 with cancer. I think actually in Canada, he was the youngest person to die of cancer. And we look at just like their poor little bodies. I mean, what they go through in that first year of growth is exponential. Is the cancer dormant or activated because of the two cells in each parent. I mean, how does a 1-year-old get cancer?
That's an excellent question. Let us compare that with the adult. The average age of an adult with cancer is 60 plus. Why? The genes mutate little by little. Only when the growth inhibiting gene, both copies of that gene are mutated, you get cancer. So it takes 6 decades of accumulation of mutations in an adult to produce a cancer stem cell. Whereas a child has not lived long enough. The average age of a child with cancer is 6. So the child has not lived long enough. So what caused the mutation of the growth inhibiting gene? Or in some cases, you cannot find a mutation. The child has cancer. The cells grow, divide uncontrollably, the stem cells. How did it happen? Because there is no mutation of the gene itself.
Right.
In order to understand that, remember we said the plant, it inherited from the ancestral cell.
Yes.
So we have to now go back and say, what caused the ancestral cell to divide? The very first cell. So that has to be an internal condition. The first thing that happens is every gene has 2 copies, and if they get separated, the cell is endowed with the power to manufacture the copy that is missing.
To create its own.
Its own. That automatically happens. The copies are made from the construction, the blocks or bricks are called nucleotides. Now, we went through a COVID virus pandemic. You know how the COVID virus got multiplied, made copies?
We did cover this in the first one, but we're going to reiterate it in this one.
Right. The virus cannot divide by itself because it has no power, no materials available, but it knows it has a plan. It just carries the plan. That is all it does. So that's why
doesn't even know why. It's just a worker bee, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So once it gets inside a cell, it goes straight to the growth activating gene and forces that gene to send a message with the blueprint of the virus to the manufacturing facility. And the cell cannot make value judgment. It just
there's an order I've got to fill, right? So it doesn't matter what the product is. I've got to order the fill. Yeah, fill the order.
Right. So they collect. There is just a gene, genetic material. It collects the raw material which is already in the cell. The cell, thousands and thousands of nucleotides, the building blocks. All the cell, the manufacturing facility has to do is to pick the right one, put it together, and you have another copy of the virus. And they keep on doing it. The same way, the original cell, for some reason, the genes got separated and new copies were formed. Now you have 2 different nuclei. And no cell can function with 2 nuclei. So that forced the cell to divide. So imagine the same internal conditions being duplicated in a stem cell in the child's body.
So you could have generations where no one has had cancer, and then a child could get cancer, and that could come from a few generations ago.
That is one possibility. The second possibility is that the gene itself got mutated through, say, radiation. After the Chernobyl disaster, within 5 years, children started getting leukemia.
Right, yes.
So it can happen with radiation, it can happen with some viral infections. For example, the papilloma virus. That can produce stem cells with mutated genes and can have cancer. or some toxins in the environment.
Right.
So all these,
Toxins in our food.
yeah. So those can damage the genes. So the problem is the parents feel bad. Oh, did I do
Yeah.
something? So that is the last thing. Yes, that is natural to feel bad
Mhm.
and take responsibility because you are responsible for the child, for the well being of the child.
Right.
You did something wrong or you did not do something right. That is the first feeling. But that is not the case.
Mhm.
You don't know when the stem cells got mutated. You
Right.
don't know how long the cancer has been going on.
Mhm.
So you cannot pinpoint a date or a time
Right.
or what you did as the cause. So don't feel bad about you that you did something or you did not do something unless you know for sure you got that you were in an environment where you cannot avoid exposure to radiation or
Right.
something like that.
Mhm.
Or inadvertently you fed the child something that causes cancer, but you did some yourself did not know.
Right.
So it is not your fault the child got cancer. Your responsibility is how to make the child feel good because the child knows there is something wrong.
Right.
Each time you go to the doctor's office, each time you go for a lab test, the child feels, oh, the child did something wrong.
Yes.
And if you are angry around
Mhm.
the child who has a diagnosis of cancer, the child doesn't know what are you angry about.
Right.
The child feels, oh, I'm responsible.
Mhm.
My parents are unhappy or angry because my condition is forcing them to change the way they think, they do things. They cannot work, they have to
Mhm.
stay home with me. The child feels guilty.
Yes. And that's the
That,
last thing the child needs to have in recovery.
right. So the question is, what do you do? So I have different instructions in the book
Mhm.
that tells the parents what should they do and how to improve the child's chances. Yes, the child should follow and the parent should follow the instruction from the oncologist. What they are trying to do is to reduce the number of cancer cells in the body with the treatment,
Mhm.
whether it is radiation or chemotherapy or immunotherapy. The idea is to cut down the number.
Mhm.
So that creates its own side effects that the
Yes.
parents have to deal with.
Right.
But do they take out all the cancer cells? Can they be sure?
Mm.
And secondly, the long term side effects 60% of children who had cancer as a child later on in adult life, even after the cancer is gone, can have some sort of side effects long term from the cancer treatment.
Yeah.
But the degree of side effect long term depends on the amount of medication used. There's a direct correlation.
Mhm.
So if we can help the oncologist to use less medication,
Right.
so what can parents do to limit the multiplication of the cancer cell so that the oncologist has to use less medication? Then you are protecting the long term
Right.
health of the child.
Right. So you're not only helping the process of the healing, but you're also helping the prevention of it
Correct.
coming back.
Correct.
Now, can they do this through nutritionals and diet?
This is where the third and fourth uh, material, the information coming. Remember the plan,
Mhm.
the workers, the energy, and materials. The materials cancer cells use are the same materials as the normal body cells have to use to repair or produce new cells. So there's very little we can do because we have to provide material.
Right.
And
And we're
those
killing off cells, so we need cells to replace them.
correct.
Yeah.
The energy source is one area the cancer cell can be vulnerable because ordinary, say, muscle cell, we spend more energy in an active body by muscles producing the energy. Muscles are like a hybrid car engine.
Mm-hmm.
A hybrid car engine can run on gasoline or electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Muscle cell can run on fatty acid or glucose. Those are the two fuels that the muscle can use to produce energy. Now, when it comes to cancer cell, they prefer glucose.
Mm.
Most of them don't have the ability to convert fatty acid into the fuel and produce energy.
Right.
They totally depend on glucose. So suppose we limit the availability of glucose
Yes.
to the,
Especially artificial, right?
then their growth pattern is slowed.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the importance or significance of that? Let me go back a little bit. Do you know when you have the maximum number of precancerous cells in your body?
Mm-hmm.
When you are in the mother's womb, when in the
Ah,
fetal stage. Why? The workers that are producing the new cells are all new. They have
right.
never done it before.
Right.
So they make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But the immune system, nature has endowed the immune system to detect each and every cancer cell and destroy. So 99% of the precancerous cells in the fetus are destroyed before the baby is born.
Right.
Some may escape and the child may develop cancer later on. But that means if we have an immune system that is
Mm-hmm.
so capable of killing the cancer cell,
Yes.
why do we have cancer?
Mm-hmm. So obviously the question is our immune system being supported enough to be able to fight off not only the cancerous cells, but every other disease that's out there?
Correct. That is why, whenever you have an infection,
Mm-hmm.
the immune system takes over, identifies the agent, produces the antibody, or they have a group of white cells, immune system white cells called natural killer cells. Their job is to hunt down any foreign agent like a bacteria or a virus or cancer cell and then destroy them. So let us assume the cancer cell is multiplying at the rate of 1,000 cells an hour. If the immune system is capable of killing 1,000 cells an hour,
Mm-hmm.
then there is no cancer.
Right. They're evening each other out.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If the cancer cell multiplication is 1,100,
Mm-hmm.
then there are a few left over
Yeah.
which can keep on multiplying. That is why it takes time for the
Mm-hmm.
cancer to appear,
Right.
because it depends on the a balance between the immune system capability and the growth potential of the cancer cell.
So we've obviously clearly got to boost our immune system. And, what we're seeing today is not only cancer in children, but we're seeing it in much younger people, teens and 20s and 30s. It used to be, I think, the 60s, but I've interviewed numerous women who had it in their 40s or even in their 30s. And is this down to, I think, the way I'm looking at it, stress, a huge killer, because it really does go and put all the emphasis on everything in your body. All of the organs are having to work harder and it breaks everything down. To obviously diet, the kind of food we put in our body. Is it chemical based? Is it nutritional? Is it truly feeding and optimizing us? And I think also a great deal of building our immune system is our attitude. And if we are worrywarts, then I think that we're kind of feeding the cancer cells. But if we're positive and we know that we're going to beat this because we know we're going to build that immune system, I think that it can help as well. So it's never just kind of one dimensional, isn't it? We have to kind of look at it as a team.
Yes, you mentioned all the possibilities. The one is the stress. How does
Mm,
stress impact cancer? The stress releases two different hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. The cortisol makes the body release, the liver release more glucose. And what do the cancer cells use for energy?
mhm.
Glucose.
Yeah.
So they have more glucose available. The second is the diet, where does the glucose come from? The more grain-based food you eat, the more glucose released in the body after digestion. Because grains, 80, if you take 100 grams of refined rice, or if it is whole grain, it is 77% glucose.
Mm.
It's refined, it is 80% glucose. So you can imagine after each meal containing complex carbohydrate, primarily in our modern day diet from grains, the glucose load is tremendous. And what the cancer cells do is they have grabbers to grab glucose
Mm.
molecules and get them in because they have voracious appetite for glucose.
Yeah.
They need the energy to produce new cells. So the type of food that you are talking about, we are talking about, yes, they contribute to the multiplication of cancer cells. Then the question is the immune system.
Mm-hmm.
Mentioned that could it be weak? There is no
Mm.
evidence to suggest in the vast majority of people with cancer, their immune system is weaker because otherwise they would have had multiple infections, for example.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. So what is happening? The immune system capability is overwhelmed by
Yeah.
the cancer cell multiplying faster.
Right.
So can we, on the one hand, if we reduce the availability of glucose to the cancer cell, and on the other hand, if we boost the immune system, then we can restore the balance.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, it's teamwork. There's not just one thing that we can do. We really do have to look at the whole, don't we? And I think, the other thing is um, get educated, know what to do. You've got a step by step there in the book, but also don't stress out about it because that's just going to multiply everything.
That is one aspect of it. The other is the power of positive thinking, as you.
Yes. Yes.
In fact, you can teach the child to do a mental exercise where the natural killer cells are targeting the cancer cells and sending darts to kill them. And that will be a power of positive thinking that
Right.
the child is saying, I can do this. The next is the parent's duty is to provide something to boost the immune system.
Mm-hmm.
So what do they need? Every healthy human being needs over 100 different nutrients
Mm.
for optimum function. And you cannot get that from one meal or
Right.
one food group.
Right.
Variety is the key. So I tell people who listen to me or talk to me that make sure that you provide the child 3 different vegetables, 3 different fruits, 3 different nuts
Mm.
every day. The quantity doesn't have to be very much.
Yeah, just a little bit here and there, right? Mm-hmm.
Right. All we need is a little bit of these that provide the multiple nutrients that the child needs to have a good, robust immune system.
If you just do one thing, it's overworking. When you put the combination of things together, they complement each other.
Right.
Right. And then they can work with each other to build the immune system instead of just one thing kind of trying to keep up. So it's the backup, the teamwork again.
Right. Many people go for supplements that
Mm-hmm.
will make the immune cells stronger. But it is just like a fire engine. If there is a fire, it needs to get to the location.
Yeah.
It needs transportation. It needs materials. It needs energy. So we have to have the whole system working, as you said, in cooperation with
Yeah.
each other. The channel through which the immune system killer cells go is through the blood circulation. So the circulation has to be robust
Yes.
and healthy.
Which then goes into activity and exercise.
Exactly.
And so, of course, if you're not feeling well, the last thing you need, want to do is go and exercise. But then even, you know, there's this qigong, this tai chi, you know, and there's an awful lot of movement that you can do even when you're not feeling well, just to get the circulation of the body and the energy of the body and flow, right? Because we need to keep that going through all the time.
When a child is having cancer, you have to be sensitive to what can the child do. For example, immediately after the chemotherapy or radiation, the child is tired. You cannot ask the child to do anything. But as soon as possible, the child can sit up or do some exercises in the seat, in the bed itself, even without getting out.
Yeah.
Just simply flexing and extending the hands and legs. So things like simple exercises, encourage the child to do.
Yeah.
Another thing is to keep the child mentally active.
Yes. So
Because
they don't dwell on it. Yeah.
the child is worried that, and the child is worried not only for what is going to happen to him or her, but also what he or she is doing to the parents, to the
Yes.
household. The whole routine is upset. So but in order to do that, you have to take away the concentration of the child from the illness to something else. So whether it is just simply listening to a song or watching a movie, doing a small puzzle or a game, whatever the child likes, the only caution I will have is make sure if the child is given screen time, where is the child?
Limited. Yeah.
Watch over that. Don't give unlimited screen time. There should be any interactive play or game with with people you trust.
Also, I think a means for them to express. You know, they could be feeling angry, they could be feeling frustrated, and they don't know how to say it because, again, they don't want to upset anyone around them. So maybe some creative art, or, you know, some other throwing of the Lego or doing something. You know, it's like, allow them to get mad. They're entitled to do so. They need to spend that emotion because otherwise they'll bottle it up. But also to allow them through their own creativity, whatever age they are, to kind of express how they're feeling, or, you know, choose their own weapon, so to speak, on how they're going to fight this. But most certainly to make sure that we honor their voice and their expression through this.
Yeah, encourage whatever creativity they have, even if it is imagination. And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, ask them to imagine the natural killer cells.
Yeah.
And they are going to hunt down the cancer cells and make a story out of it.
Yes, exactly. And that, you know, every time they're going for a treatment, you know, we're going to be, you know, Superboy or Supergirl today. We're going in there, we're going to obliterate that cancer, you know, and it's make them feel, also don't make them feel invalid. Yes,
Correct.
they're sick. Yes,
Correct.
they need to rest. Yes, they need to be careful. But I think if you make them feel an invalid, it kind of, you know, I was an asthmatic, and every time I had an asthma attack, my mum would worry about, or a cold, they should worry about the bronchial asthma, and I was put into bed, and I could be there for weeks on end. And we didn't have TV, radio, or this or that back then to entertain you. You were just in bed. And I think it can be soul destroying for a kid. So I think it's very, very important they have all these activities in a form of expression, but give them the power to be their own empowerment with their disease, and to be able to express themselves, and also to feel triumphant over every step they're taking.
The parents have to feel confident.
Yeah.
They have a positive attitude themselves.
Yes.
If they express any doubt in front of the child
will pick it up. Oh, yeah.
The child. Even more important, if they are discussing the child's condition with a concerned neighbor or family member, don't make it within the earshot of the child. Should not be able to hear it. Whatever you have to tell somebody else about the child's condition, do it without the child hearing it.
And I think it's also get real too. It's okay for the family to say, okay, this is a battle the family's taking on, and all of us are going to have to make some sacrifices right now, and that's okay.
Right.
That is okay. And if little Johnny can't go to the sports right now because we're at chemotherapy. Little Johnny understands that.
Yeah.
And we'll make it up to little Johnny later. I don't think, don't sugarcoat it. Keep
Correct.
it real,
Yeah.
but make sure, that they never feel guilty about it and that everybody understands we need to do a little sacrificing right now for the good. When you're better, then it'll
Right.
be somebody else's turn.
Exactly. The parents sometimes feel helpless because they cannot answer the
Right.
child's questions. And it will be a common question: when am I going to be over it?
Yes.
What's going to happen to me? How many more treatments do I have? And if the parents don't have answers, they should consult the team, the oncology team, get the answers, because the parents are going to be told through their friends, through social
Mm.
media. There are so many options. Oh, my child did this and he got better. My child ate this and got better. Screen the information,
Mm-hmm.
get information, because they are well-meaning information.
Right. And it may be valid, but it doesn't mean it's the be all and the end all, right?
And also, it doesn't mean it may be applicable for your
Right.
child
Exactly.
condition. So consult with somebody whom you trust.
Mm-hmm.
And if your oncologist does not have the time, there may be nurse practitioners
Mm-hmm.
who are in the team whom you can call, ask the question, clarify, understand in your own mind. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And, when we talk about team, you've got the oncologist, so you've got the nursing team, you've got the support team for parents with children of cancer, but you've also got, many other nutritional and dietitianal avenues and people that specialize in it as well. And I think, a lot of the time people um, can get intimidated by the medical and feel that they can't have a nutritional specialist, and they can't have somebody, talking about a holistic manner with it. Again, is that if you feel comfortable with asking the question, ask it. Don't believe there's just one channel. There's so many components to this, and that do whatever you feel that you need to do. Don't panic about it. Be investigative. Somebody
Right.
comes up with a weird idea, you have no idea. Look into it. Look
Right.
at the research behind it, and it may be something that you can apply as well.
One of the very commonly overlooked factor in uh, taking care of a child with cancer is the value of pets.
Yes, yes.
Because but sometimes the child feels lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine how happy the child will be if there is a pet
Yeah.
that child loves, and the pets will give you unconditional love,
Unconditional love, and so supportive.
and it doesn't care whether you have
Mm-hmm.
cancer or
No.
illness or whatever. So that pleasure, that will be so valuable for a child
Mm-hmm.
if your environment will allow you
Mm-hmm.
to have a pet.
But it's also whether they can do it physically or do it virtually, is make friends with other families that are going through this.
That
When a child has got another, somebody else that was also going through this, they understand what they're going through. Let them have that camaraderie, and you'll find the parents will be there to support and commiserate with each other as well. So whether you can actually do it physically or just do it virtually, find these other connections, right, to build that family up on.
that is another, and in most of the oncology treatment centers now, they have dogs.
Mm-hmm.
They are companion dogs just for cancer patients.
Wonderful.
So
Wonderful.
they may be able to go there for about an hour a day or
Mm-hmm.
times like that, and be with the animal that they love, and the animal is trained specifically
Yes.
for uh, com- uh, being a
Yeah.
companion cancer patient.
We've seen how animals are so utterly intuitive and how incredibly compassionate they are. And I've done shows on veterans and post-traumatic stress people with dogs, and children of autism and
Right.
animals. And the thing is that the animal kingdom is so incredibly smart, and they just know what you need when you need it. And loving something else and just having that adoration and love back is such a beautiful energy builder, immune builder,
Yes.
and the optimism builder, that it really becomes part of the curing ingredient.
Correct. So this is the environment we have to put the child in.
Mm-hmm.
He is not lost. He's not helpless.
No.
It's a team, and will help the child to heal. Because now, with the modern treatment, 85% of childhood cancers are curable.
Yeah.
So that being the case, you have to project that optimism. Yes, we are going through a hard time right now.
Yes.
But you are going to be fine.
Yeah.
We are in it together, as you said. We are going to make it. Initially, we'll have some bumps along the way.
Right, exactly. I mean, but that in a lot of ways is a metaphor for life.
Yes.
And, we see, again, through the interviews that I've done, I've interviewed people who had cancer or some, horrific disease growing up. And it's like, but yeah, it was difficult. Yes, it was challenging. Yes, we didn't know what we were doing. But I look at where I am today.
Correct.
And what I'm doing today, and I can face anything today. And I live with a beautiful, almost 89-year-old who had polio when she was young. Now, her twin sister died, and they're not quite sure what she died from. And then within a month or so, she collapsed and had polio. And she went through the operation. She went through the whole thing, about nearly 4 years in the hospital. And yet her attitude on life is just so utterly incredible. It's like, I seek the joy. I seek, what makes me happy. I'm not feeding what has been taken from me. I'm looking at what I can actually receive. And I think that is so utterly important. They went through hell. They didn't know, what the repercussions were going to be, but they had faith and they applied that faith and it worked.
This is one advantage for children.
Mm-hmm.
They plan to live for the moment.
Yes.
They don't plan 20 years from now, 30 years from now.
No.
So
it's a true beautiful gift we could learn a lot from.
Correct. So if we can concentrate on now,
yes,
how to get over this, how to make the child happy now, rather than, what is going to happen later on.
Mm-hmm. How is this going to affect school? How is this going to affect their social life? How is this going to affect their sports? No, just all of the energy in the moment, right?
Correct. If we can concentrate on that, it will give peace for the parents also. Okay, all I have to do is to take care of today.
Yes.
Tomorrow, I will do the same for that day. Instead of going, a week from now, we have a treatment. Yeah. What should we do? He's going to be tired. Today. Yes. What can you do to make the child comfortable today?
And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with preparation. You know when they come back from chemo, they're tired, or if this and that, they're tired, or maybe this kind of food upsets their stomach after this. You get to know what works and what doesn't work. And that's okay to put in your arsenal, right? It's your system.
That is for the parents.
Yes.
But as far as the child is concerned today.
No. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that is, and it's, when a child has a different reaction to something they had yesterday, it's okay. Right. It's okay. Don't go, but it worked yesterday. Well, it's today and it didn't work today. So let's try something different.
Yeah. The same way with the parents may prepare something the child enjoyed the previous day, and the child may not want it today.
Right.
And what can you do? You are helpless. Yes. But you have to console the child. Say, that's okay. If you don't feel like eating, that's fine. What can I bring you? What do you feel like? So that kind of accommodation. The one thing that you cannot show as parents in front of a child with cancer is anger.
Yes. Oh, please. No, none of that. No. I mean, yes, you could be angry at the cancer and you can channel that in, okay, cancer, make fun of it with the kid. I'm super mom, the super dad here. And we're going to help you, super child, and make it into something that becomes a power, channel it into a possibility.
Now, we are not giving the license to give to the child to do anything he or she wants. Yes, they still need discipline.
Yes.
But you can discipline a child without being angry.
Right.
So it is a teaching lesson, teaching moment for the parents also.
Mm-hmm.
How to be a good parent without getting angry.
Right. Well, you're putting pressure on the child, but kind persuasion. There's
Correct.
ways of doing it. It's like when you're dealing with a child anyway, they can go from one mood to the next in a split second,
Right.
right? And when they're going through something like this, those moods can just have enormous amount of swings. And
Yes.
yes, parents, it can get frustrating. Yes, it can get exasperating. And I think that sometimes you've just got to be the silly Billy. You've just got to go, oh my God, and,
Exactly.
and lighten it up,
Exactly.
and because then the kid will laugh, and then the kid is then more open to persuasion of, well, okay, you don't want to eat that, but you got to drink because that's the fighting cell, or you need this because that's the weapon against the cancer, and kind of make it something into a persuasion
Correct.
rather than something of an anger of throwing the food around or anything else. But we've got to step into being mother nature, obviously, mother and grandmother and best friend and clown and medical doctor. I mean, as a parent, you're taking on everything.
Correct. Ordinarily, you do that, but here it is a little bit more intense
Exaggerated, yeah.
because of the condition. Otherwise, you are already doing it without thinking about it.
Right.
Now you have to a little bit more focus. And this will be a chance to refine your approach to a patient who has cancer.
Now, once the child has gone through cancer, is it inevitable it will come back again at some point, or is it with a healthy lifestyle, healthy attitude, a good well-beingness, that there is never a chance of them getting back?
Well, what we are talking about is what is called cancer containment. You can live with cancer cells in your body.
Mm-hmm.
The cancer cell most likely have been living there for some time.
Yeah.
As long as they don't multiply, overwhelming the immune system. So what we are trying to do is not to get rid of every last bit of cancer stem cells in the body. That may take too much medication and too much damage or side effects.
Right. Yeah.
If we can control and boost the immune system, then the child can live with the cancer cell hiding in the body someplace. We don't even know.
Right. Come
Most,
out wherever you are.
right. Most of us, I tell you, we will have a cancer cell. And somebody calculated every 10 years, a cancer stem cell develops in an adult. But the immune system takes care of it.
Right.
You don't even know.
Yes.
You know, the number one cancer that kills men in the Western Hemisphere is prostate cancer. Only 30% will die of cancer. 70% will not.
Right.
So among the 70, half of them won't even know they have it until they die of something else.
True. But there's also that thing of misdiagnosis. My poor brother was being investigated for prostate cancer. And it turns out that he didn't have anything to do with the prostate cancer. He had kidney filtration problem, right? So he's got too many proteins and all of that other stuff in there. And it's extremely too high cholesterol. I mean, it's way too high. And that's what's causing all of his problems. Yeah. And where it was before, no, it's the prostate. And now, no, it's the kidneys. And sometimes we do actually have to go through all of the investigation to kind of get to what really is the problem.
Correct.
Right. So there is such a thing as misdiagnosis, and if you as a parent or as a person feel, no, you know what, this doesn't feel right, it's okay to go and get another opinion. It's okay to go back and say, I want more tests. We can, this is called your health is your choice. If we feel that it's being missed or there's something else there, we have that right as a person to speak on behalf of our children and on behalf of ourselves to say, I want more investigation.
This is the point of my last book. I don't know whether I ever showed you that or not.
He's written a lot of books, folks, on them, so many things, diabetes, etc.
Called Your Health is at Risk, because there's a lot of disinformation, misinformation, and missing information. And you get, with the social media being like this, you get bombarded with so much information. How to screen through that? Sometimes, as you said, you need a second opinion or a third opinion, because you need to ask questions.
Right. And it's not all Dr. Google, folks.
Yes.
I mean, you can look up one symptom, right? One symptom, and then Google will come up with 24 diseases that it could be, right? You know, please, it is a symptom. You don't know what the root problem is. And I think an awful lot of the time, and this could very much be with a child, they don't know why they don't feel well. Very often we don't know what's wrong, because the symptom will manifest this way, and it may indicate that, but in actual fact, it's something totally different.
When you don't understand either the treatment or the diagnosis or the objective or the side effect, ask.
Yes.
Clarify. Get a trusted source, and then see whether it makes it, can you believe it? If you don't understand it, be careful.
Yeah, exactly. It's wonderful that we have all these things at our fingertips. And I think also one of the things is when you go to a doctor, and whether it's on behalf of you or a child, it is go in with as much information as you have.
Yes.
Because that will help the doctor to look at, okay, well, that's an indication of that, but maybe that's not. So let's look into this further. But so often you're going in, I just don't feel well. Well, what's wrong? I don't know. And of course, we've come to the mechanic to fix us. Right. But if you can go in with more detail, because you have 5 minutes with a doctor now, give them the details of exactly how you're feeling, because then they can get to that diagnosis a lot quicker.
Exactly.
It's heartbreaking when you do see a child with cancer. And again, as I said, we see so much of it today. And I think that a lot of the cancer today has come about from the environmental chemicals. I think that parents are constantly living in an anxiety and stress mode. Obviously the genes laying in the body ready to be ignited. But again, we go back to diet. And in the history of time, have we ever consumed so much sugar in our diet? Right? It's in everything.
Yes. And also the maximum amount of glucose, which is called blood sugar, that enters the body in the modern day diet come from complex carbohydrates in the grains. 100 years ago, the percentage of daily energy from cultivated grains was less than, or complex carbohydrate in any form was less than 35%. After the agricultural revolution, grains became the basis of the cheapest food, most convenient foods available, and the percentage of glucose or energy coming from daily food intake is 50% from complex carbohydrate in modern day industrialized nations and 70% in developing nations. So we are providing the cancer cell enormous amount of fuel.
Right.
And that is why it is increasing. So if we can cut down that, we can help the child and to have less medications to control the cancer and potentially prevent a recurrence.
So what are the good carbohydrates?
There are no good or bad. It is the quantity.
Right.
You can have, rice, wheat, and corn are the main culprits in the modern society, providing too much fuel for the cancer cell. So if we can cut that down to 1/2 of what you are eating right now,
right,
that will go a long way towards controlling not only cancer, but also type 2 diabetes and obesity.
Right. And if we could incorporate a great deal more of healthy, organic vegetables, fruit into our diet, and I say organic, we don't want GMO, and we don't want the pesticides because they most certainly do lead to cancer. We pay a little bit more, we eat healthier, so we don't need to eat as much, right?
Right. Another thing that you can do with the child with cancer is ask him to plant a garden, vegetable garden, and let him pick the produce, and then allow him and ask him to help to cook it.
Yes.
And then imagine if the child produces the vegetable, cooks it, he will be more than happy to eat it.
Oh, yes, most certainly. And there's I mean, we're seeing so much of a plant-based diet now. My little grandson at a year is 100% vegan. And, you know, the things that he eats is a lot broader spectrum than what mine did, and loves his fruit. You know, he will eat the avocado, but you'll have days where I like it, and other days toss it. You know, that's a kid. But I think we sell our kids short in what we introduce the foods to them. Oh no, that's too sophisticated for them. But I think if we can get them early into the vegetables and the fruits, trying the different ones in different ways, you know, they adjust to those taste buds immediately. It's harder when they've been on a complete sugar diet for so long to now introduce different foods in there. So let's get them right when they're babas.
Yeah, gradually introduce new things.
Yes.
And make it enjoyable, make it a palatable dish. So that is how, so emotionally support the child and physically encourage the buildup of the immune system, and then reassure the child, yes, we are going to live through this. We is a team, there is a home team, and there is an oncology team.
Right, exactly.
And between the two of us, we are going to be doing.
Right. And you know that a lot of detoxing needs to happen during the treatment of cancer. So, you know, obviously a lot of fiber, a lot of water. And I know kids don't always like to drink water. And so, you know, a touch of flavor in there, whatever it needs to, but get the water in there, because we as adults don't drink enough water either. Everybody seems to go for the fancy stuff instead of, like, you know, just pure old good water.
Now, finally, on my website, there is an animation video about how to do the cancer containment. So my website is drjohnonhealth.com. And my books are available on Amazon.
Right. And also, Dr. John's been with us now 3 shows. All you have to do actually is put his name in. But, you know, under his name, I've actually got, hang on a second, I'll get that up there in a second. I've got exactly, you know, everything that we've really kind of talked about, where we've talked about cancer and diabetes and obesity, and we've got more shows to come. I actually do really want to talk about kidneys, you know, kidney failure versus prostate, because again, that seems to be something that confuses a lot of people. And again, that's something we can prevent, isn't it? We can be aware of. So we don't want to wait for kidney failure and then go, what am I meant to do? Let's go, you know, because my family is very prone to kidney. And again, we're going back to that ancestral gene. Cancer, heart disease, and kidney disease are in my family, right? You can keep the cancer in the heart. I'm not interested, but you know, the kidney, I do know I have to be aware of. And I think when we're aware that this is prone in the family, or aware of symptoms, then we're more likely to pay attention as to what we can do about to, again, build the immune system up to support it, but also to prevent it. Because we really would prefer people do prevention before they get sick.
Yeah. Agree.
So you're going to come back and talk about that?
Well, we can talk about what you are the host.
No, but it's, you know, your forte. Can we talk about the kidneys and the prostate? Because I know that I get asked about prostate a lot, and it's not something that I've done too many shows on. And I think for, you know, especially with men, it's something that can be quite terrifying for them. So if we can do that, that is great. So more episodes coming up with Dr. John. So as I said, folks, please, you can go to his site, which is Dr. John on health, drjohnonhealth.com. But here you can come to selfdiscoverymedia.com and you can just simply put in his name. Now I'm going to spell his name for you because it's not so easy. You put in Dr. John and then Poothullill. And we've got it on cancer, diabetes, and obesity. This is what we've covered in the first 3 shows, and there's more shows to come. You'll find all of his books there as well. So one click to go to his books on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and the whole tutti frutti. And I have him back each time because he really does break it down in a way that we as laymen can understand. Because the last thing we want is doctor talk. It goes, over our heads, and you simplify things in a way for us to understand. So if you want to know what COVID is, go back to the first show, and diabetes, what the cancer, which you also described last time as well, and this time. And these are the kind of shows to relax you, make you feel more comfortable about your own health, but also to show you how important your health is and your choices around your health. So thanks so much for being with us again here, Dr. John.
Thank you for having me.
And until next time, folks, where I have him back again, your health is your choice. And the more you know, the more you can empower yourself, the more you can prevent, and the more you can heal. Bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. Please tune in to our selfdiscoverymedia.com/shows and you will see all the other genres that we have from you. Every week on Tuesday, we bring you new shows from illuminating people. If you know someone that should be interviewed, please contact us at info@selfdiscoverymedia.com. Now stay tuned for your next show.